Sarah Chen's boots echoed against the metal floor of Cargo Bay 7 as she made her routine maintenance rounds through New Singapore Spaceport. The massive chamber stretched nearly half a kilometer high, filled with stacks of quantum-sealed containers that pulsed with soft containment fields. She paused to check another faulty gravity regulator, the third one this shift. The endless task of keeping the spaceport's systems running smoothly had become second nature after 5 years on the job. A flicker of blue-green light caught her attention from the corner of her eye. Sarah turned, expecting to see another malfunctioning power coupling, but the light seemed different, organic, almost fluid in its movement. It danced between the gaps of the cargo containers, reminiscent of the bioluminescent plankton she'd once seen in Earth's oceans. "Hello," she called out, her voice carrying through the cavernous space. The light dimmed slightly, as if responding to her presence. Sarah pulled out her maintenance scanner, but it showed no unusual energy readings in the area. Whatever this was, it wasn't a technical malfunction. She rounded the corner of a massive container marked with Centaurian trade symbols and stopped dead in her tracks. There, huddled in a small space between the containers, was a child, but unlike any she'd seen before. The young alien's skin rippled with patterns of soft light that shifted from blue to green and back again. Sarah recognized the characteristic oval-shaped head and silvery skin of a Vextheri, one of the most advanced species in known space, but she'd never seen one that glowed like this. The child looked up at her with large, iridescent eyes that seemed to hold both fear and hope. Their small form trembled, and the light patterns across their skin flickered erratically. Sarah noticed signs of malnourishment and fatigue. How long had this little one been hiding here? A group of Maldorian traders passed by at the far end of the cargo bay. Sarah watched as they noticed the glow, their eye stalks turning sharply away as they quickened their pace. Their reaction was unusual. Most species would at least show curiosity about an abandoned child. "It's okay," Sarah said softly, kneeling down to appear less threatening. "I won't hurt you." She reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out her lunch, a simple nutrient bar. The child's eyes followed her movements with intense focus. As she unwrapped the bar, a sophisticated-looking drone zipped past, its sensors sweeping the area. The child pressed further back into the shadows, their light dimming to almost nothing. Sarah positioned herself to block the drone's view until it passed. Something about this situation felt wrong. Why would a Vextheri child be hiding from security? She broke off a small piece of the nutrient bar and placed it on the ground between them, then backed away slightly. The child waited several moments before darting forward to snatch the food, their movements quick but graceful despite their weakened state. The lights beneath their skin pulsed with what Sarah interpreted as relief as they ate. A memory surfaced from her xenobiology training. The Vextheri were known for their genetic engineering. Having spent millennia perfecting their species, they took immense pride in their biological uniformity. A child with unprecedented bioluminescent abilities would be. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the implications. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the cargo bay. The child's light patterns shifted to darker tones, expressing clear distress. Sarah made a quick decision. She couldn't leave them here alone. "Would you like to come with me?" she asked, extending her hand. "I have access to the maintenance corridors. We can find somewhere safe." The child looked at her hand, then at her face, their lights creating complex patterns that seemed to be trying to communicate something. After a moment's hesitation, they reached out and took her hand. Their skin was cool to the touch, and Sarah could feel a slight vibration from the bioluminescent patches. As she led them toward a service entrance, Sarah's mind raced with questions. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do next, but one thing was certain. She wouldn't abandon this child just because they were different. Whatever happened, she would find a way to help them. Sarah guided the luminescent child through the maintenance corridors of New Singapore Spaceport, her mind working overtime to form a plan. The service tunnels were a maze of pipes and conduits, familiar only to the human workers who kept the massive facility running. Their footsteps echoed softly against the metal gratings as they made their way to her private workshop. The small room was cluttered with spare parts and diagnostic equipment, but it was secure and off the main security grid. Sarah cleared a space on her workbench, creating a makeshift seat for the child. Under the warm light of her workshop, their bioluminescent patterns seemed even more remarkable, shifting in subtle waves across their silvery skin. "First things first," Sarah said, pulling out her emergency medical scanner. "Let's make sure you're okay." She held up the device, making her intentions clear before scanning. The child watched with curious eyes, their light patterns swirling in what seemed like agreement. The scanner's results made Sarah frown. "Dehydrated and malnourished, but nothing life-threatening," she murmured. She retrieved a water packet and some emergency rations from her locker, designed to be safe for most carbon-based life forms. As the child ate, Sarah noticed their light patterns becoming more regular, creating complex geometric shapes that pulsed in rhythm. She pulled out her tablet and began recording the patterns, wondering if they represented some form of communication. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" she asked softly. The patterns intensified, and the child pointed to their throat, then made a gesture like waves spreading outward. Sarah understood. They couldn't speak, at least not in any conventional way. She opened her tablet's music library, remembering how Vexthuri were known for their sophisticated appreciation of harmonics. As the first notes of a classical Earth symphony filled the room, the child's eyes widened. Their skin began to glow in perfect synchronization with the music, creating cascading patterns that matched every rise and fall of the melody. "That's incredible," Sarah whispered. The child's expression brightened, and they reached for the tablet, pointing to different songs. With each new piece of music, their light patterns became more complex, telling stories through color and movement. Sarah realized they weren't just reacting to the music. They were interpreting it, adding their own layer of visual poetry to each composition. The moment was interrupted by an alert on Sarah's comm unit. Her supervisor was requesting an update on the faulty gravity regulators. Reality crashed back in. She couldn't keep the child hidden in her workshop forever. "We need to give you a name," she said, scrolling through her tablet. A picture of Earth's aurora borealis caught her eye. Dancing lights in the sky, beautiful and unique. How about Aurora? The child's skin lit up with a bright, swirling pattern that Sarah took as enthusiastic approval. Sarah spent the next hour teaching Aurora basic hand signals for communication, while continuing to record their light patterns. She was building a rudimentary translation system, matching specific patterns to emotions and concepts. Aurora proved to be a quick learner, soon able to express simple needs through a combination of lights and gestures. As her shift neared its end, Sarah faced a difficult decision. Taking Aurora to her small apartment would be risky, but leaving them in the spaceport wasn't an option. She needed help, but who could she trust? The spaceport's medical facilities were required to report all unusual cases to species authorities, and she'd heard rumors about how the Vexthuri dealt with genetic variations. Aurora must have sensed her concern. They created a pattern Sarah had learned meant trust, followed by another that resembled a question mark. Sarah smiled, touched by their attempt to reassure her. "Don't worry," she said, making the hand signal for safety they'd practiced. "We'll figure this out together." She began gathering supplies, her mind already mapping out the back routes to her apartment. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was committed now. Somewhere in this vast spaceport, there had to be others willing to help. She just had to find them. 3 days of keeping Aurora hidden in her apartment had taught Sarah more about improvisation than her entire maintenance career. She'd rigged light-blocking screens over her windows and established a careful routine of supply runs during the quietest hours. But she knew this wasn't sustainable, especially after spotting the Vexthuri diplomatic shuttle arriving at the spaceport that morning. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through underground medical forums on her encrypted tablet, while Aurora created intricate light patterns to a piece of classical music. The child's health had improved with regular meals and rest, but they needed proper medical care from someone who understood Vex theory physiology. A private message popped up on her screen. Noticed your queries about bioluminescent variations. Secure channel available. Respond if interested. Sarah hesitated, her cybersecurity training screaming caution, but her options were running out. She sent a carefully worded reply. Minutes later, her tablet projected a holographic face, a middle-aged human woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes. "I'm Dr. Elena Martinez," the woman said softly. "And I believe you have someone special there with you." Aurora peeked around Sarah's shoulder, their skin dimming to a curious blue glow. Elena's expression softened. "Hello, little one. Those are beautiful patterns you're making." She turned back to Sarah. "You're not alone. There's a network of us, humans who've chosen to help unique beings who need sanctuary." Sarah leaned forward. "How do I know I can trust you?" "Because 20 years ago, I made the same choice you did," Elena replied, sending an image to Sarah's tablet. It showed a younger Elena with a group of children from different species, including one who looked remarkably like Aurora, but with patterns of golden light instead of blue-green. "The Vextheri aren't the only species who struggle with genetic differences," Elena explained. "We maintain safe houses throughout human space. Dr. James Okonjo runs our closest facility, a state-of-the-art clinic hidden in an asteroid belt mining operation." Aurora created a complex pattern that Sarah had learned meant excitement mixed with hope. The child had been watching medical dramas on her tablet, clearly understanding more about their own situation than Sarah had realized. "It's not without risk," Elena warned. "But we have a plan. There's a cargo ship leaving for the mining facility tomorrow, officially carrying medical supplies for the human workers. The captain is one of ours." Sarah looked at Aurora, who was now creating a pattern that resembled stars and trajectories. "What about the diplomatic shuttle? Why are they here?" "They're responding to rumors," Elena said grimly. "But they're searching the spaceport, not residential areas. If we move quickly, we can stay ahead of them." She sent a set of coordinates. "Meet us at loading bay 23 at 400 hours. Bring only what you can carry in one bag." After the call ended, Sarah began gathering essential supplies. Aurora helped, their light patterns shifting between determination and nervous energy. The child paused at Sarah's small bookshelf, pointing to a worn copy of Earth's Natural Wonders, the page with the aurora borealis that had inspired their name. "Of course we'll bring it," Sarah smiled, adding the book to their bag. She looked around her apartment, realizing how quickly her life had changed. 3 days ago, her biggest concern had been faulty gravity regulators. A soft glow touched her hand. Aurora was creating the pattern for family, one of the first they'd established in their growing light language dictionary. The child added a new variation she'd never seen before, somehow combining it with the pattern for journey. Sarah knelt down to eye level with Aurora. "That's right. We're in this together now." She checked the time. 6 hours until their rendezvous. "Try to rest a bit. Tomorrow, we'll find you proper help, and maybe even others like you." As Aurora drifted off to sleep, their light patterns gently pulsing like a bioluminescent lullaby, Sarah double-checked their escape route. She didn't know exactly what waited for them in that asteroid belt clinic, but for the first time since finding Aurora, she felt something stronger than hope. She felt certainty. Somewhere among the stars, there were humans who had built something extraordinary, a network of sanctuary and acceptance. The asteroid belt clinic looked nothing like a medical facility from the outside. Nestled within a massive space rock, its exterior resembled a typical mining operation. But as Sarah and Aurora followed Dr. James Okonjo through the hidden entrance, they discovered a world of advanced technology and unexpected beauty. "Welcome to Sanctuary Station," Dr. Okonjo said, his deep voice warm and reassuring. The Nigerian xenobiologist had greeted them personally when their cargo ship docked, his keen eyes taking in Aurora's condition with professional interest. "We've been studying bioluminescent variations for years, but I've never seen patterns quite like yours." Aurora's skin rippled with curious lights as they walked through corridors lined with sophisticated medical equipment. Through the clinic's windows, they could see the asteroid belt stretching out into space, chunks of rock tumbling slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. "This will be your room," Dr. Okonjo said, leading them into a spacious chamber with walls that could shift from opaque to transparent. "The environmental controls are calibrated for Vextheri physiology, and we've installed specialized light sensors to monitor your patterns." Sarah watched as Aurora explored the space, their lights creating excited swirls of color. The child paused at a strange device in the corner, something that looked like a cross between a musical instrument and a scientific apparatus. "Ah, you found our harmonic resonance chamber," Dr. Okonjo smiled. "We use it to study how different species respond to various frequencies. Would you like to try it?" Aurora nodded eagerly. Dr. Okonjo activated the device, and a gentle melody filled the room. The child's lights began to pulse in rhythm, but this time something was different. The patterns weren't just matching the music, they were extending from their skin, filling the air with three-dimensional shapes of light. "Extraordinary," Dr. Okonjo whispered, quickly adjusting his sensors. "The harmonic frequencies are amplifying your natural abilities. You're not just responding to the music, you're adding to it, creating visual harmonies." Sarah watched in amazement as Aurora experimented with different musical pieces. Classical Earth symphonies produced sweeping auroras of light that danced across the room. Ancient Vextheri temple hymns created geometric patterns so complex they seemed to fold through multiple dimensions. When a piece of jazz played, Aurora's lights bounced and swirled with playful improvisation. "This is why they were afraid," Dr. Okonjo said quietly to Sarah. "The Vextheri believe they perfected their species generations ago. But Aurora here represents something they didn't plan for. Evolution taking its own path, creating something new and beautiful." A soft alarm chimed, and Dr. Okonjo checked his medical scanner. "That's enough for today. We need to run some basic health checks, and then you both should rest. It's been a long journey." As he conducted his examination, he explained more about the sanctuary. "We have others here like Aurora, children from various species whose differences made them outcasts. Many have gone on to make remarkable discoveries or create entirely new forms of art. Difference isn't a flaw. It's how species grow and adapt." Aurora created a pattern that Sarah recognized as a question, pointing to the harmonic chamber. "Yes, you can practice with it whenever you like," Dr. Okonjo laughed. "In fact, I'd love to document how your abilities develop. With your permission, of course," he added, looking at Sarah. Sarah nodded, feeling tears in her eyes as she watched Aurora's joy. Just days ago, the child had been hiding in a cargo bay, afraid and alone. Now they were somewhere safe, with people who saw their difference as a gift rather than a defect. Aurora came over and took her hand, creating their special pattern for family, combined with a new symphony of lights that filled the room with warmth and gratitude. Dr. Okonjo watched with fascination. "You've developed your own light language," he observed. "Would you be willing to teach me? Understanding how you communicate could help us better serve other children who come to us." Aurora's response was to fill the room with patterns of light that danced like stars, each one telling a story that needed no translation at all. A story of finding hope and acceptance among the endless wonders of space. 2 months had passed at Sanctuary Station, and Aurora's progress exceeded everyone's expectations. The child's light performances in the harmonic chamber had become a daily highlight for the station's residents. Even the most hardened mining engineers would find excuses to pass by during practice sessions, watching in wonder as symphonies of light danced through the air. Sarah sat in Dr. Okonjo's office, reviewing Aurora's latest medical scans. "Their health has improved dramatically," he said, pointing to the charts. "But more importantly, look at these neural activity readings during the performances." The scans showed intricate patterns of energy flowing through Aurora's brain, unlike anything in the medical database. "They're not just creating light shows," Dr. Okonjo explained. They're developing an entirely new form of artistic expression, one that bridges the gap between music, light, and emotion itself. Their discussion was interrupted by Elena's urgent holocall. "We have a situation," she said, her usually calm face tense. Someone posted a clip of Aurora's performance online. It's gone viral across human networks, and, she paused, a Vextheri cultural attaché is requesting a meeting. Sarah felt her heart skip. "How did they find us?" "They didn't," Elena assured her. "They've approached through official diplomatic channels, requesting dialogue with the human government about recent developments in artistic expression. This is different from their usual approach." Dr. Okonjo studied the message on his screen. The attaché is Venra, known for their progressive views. They've been advocating for cultural exchange with other species for years. He turned to Sarah. This could be an opportunity rather than a threat. Aurora entered the office, immediately sensing the tension. Their lights shifted to a questioning pattern, one that Sarah had learned meant they wanted to understand what was happening. She explained the situation in their shared light language, which had grown increasingly sophisticated. To everyone's surprise, Aurora's response was to create a new pattern, one that combined courage with curiosity. They moved to the center of the room and began a performance unlike anything they'd done before. The lights wove together elements of traditional Vextheri harmonics with human melodies, creating a visual story of two cultures meeting, learning, and growing together. They want to share their gift, Sarah realized. They're not afraid anymore. Dr. Okonjo nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps it's time we stopped hiding. Aurora's ability isn't just a genetic variation. It's an evolution in how species can communicate and connect through art. Elena's hologram smiled. "I'll arrange the meeting, but with conditions. It happens here, on human territory, with full diplomatic protection." She looked at Sarah. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah watched Aurora continue their performance, each pattern more confident than the last. "We've been teaching Aurora about acceptance and courage," she said. "Maybe it's time we showed some ourselves." Over the next few days, preparations transformed part of the station into a diplomatic venue. Aurora practiced tirelessly, combining everything they'd learned into a single performance that would show the Vextheri what they'd been missing. The day before the meeting, Sarah found Aurora in the harmonic chamber, creating a pattern she'd never seen before. It spoke of hope, but also of something deeper, a vision of a future where differences were celebrated rather than feared. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Sarah said, sitting beside them, "know that you've already changed so many lives here. You've shown us that sometimes the most beautiful things in the universe come from unexpected places." Aurora's response was to create their pattern for family, but this time it expanded to fill the entire chamber, incorporating the lights of the asteroid belt beyond the window. In that moment, Sarah understood. They weren't just preparing for a performance or a diplomatic meeting. They were about to show the galaxy that the things that make us different are the same things that make us extraordinary. As they watched the stars together, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, in this sanctuary among the asteroids, they had already won the most important victory: the freedom to be exactly who they were meant to be. The day of the diplomatic meeting arrived with an air of nervous anticipation. Sanctuary Station's largest chamber had been transformed into a performance space, with representatives from both human and Vextheri delegations seated in careful protocol order. Cultural attaché Venra sat in the front row, their silver skin reflecting the soft ambient lighting. Sarah stood backstage with Aurora, whose light pattern showed a mix of excitement and determination. Dr. Okonjo made final adjustments to the harmonic chamber, which had been modified to project Aurora's light patterns throughout the entire room. "Remember," Sarah whispered, kneeling beside Aurora, "you're not performing for their approval. You're showing them who you are." Aurora responded with their pattern for courage, now strong and steady. The chamber fell silent as Dr. Okonjo stepped forward to make the introduction. "Honored representatives," he began, "we are here today to witness not just a performance, but a moment of evolution. What you're about to see represents the natural progression of both art and biology, a gift that emerged not from careful planning, but from life's endless capacity to create new wonders. Aurora walked to the center of the room, their light patterns calm and focused. The human musicians took their positions with their instruments. A violinist, a pianist, and a player of the traditional Vextheri harmonic spheres, marking the first collaboration of its kind. The performance began with a single note from the violin, which Aurora matched with a thread of blue light. The harmonic sphere joined in, and Aurora added patterns that spoke of ancient Vextheri traditions. As the piano entered, new colors emerged, weaving Earth's melodies into the tapestry of light and sound. The audience sat transfixed as Aurora's lights filled the chamber, telling a story that transcended spoken language. They showed the loneliness of being different, the fear of rejection, but then, as the music swelled, the joy of finding acceptance among the humans. The patterns shifted to reveal the beauty of diversity, how variations could create something greater than uniformity ever could. Venera leaned forward, their composed diplomatic demeanor giving way to wonder as Aurora began incorporating traditional Vextheri-like scripts, the ancient form of communication their species had used before developing vocal speech. But Aurora transformed these familiar patterns, breathing new life into them through the lens of music and emotion. The performance reached its crescendo as Aurora created a spectacular display of interweaving lights that represented the collaboration of both cultures. The music and lights spoke of a future where differences were not merely tolerated but celebrated as the catalysts of cultural evolution. As the final notes faded and the lights gently dimmed, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, Venera stood and began creating their own light patterns, an ancient gesture of profound respect among their people, rarely shown to outsiders. In all my years as a cultural attaché, Venera spoke, their voice carrying equal measures of authority and emotion. I have never witnessed such a perfect demonstration of why our traditions must evolve. We thought we had reached perfection, but in doing so, we almost lost something precious. The ability to grow, to change, to become more than we are. They turned to address the entire chamber. This child has not corrupted our traditions. They have elevated them. Through human protection and nurturing, they have discovered a way to honor our past while embracing new possibilities. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as Aurora ran to her, their lights creating their special pattern for family, now expanded to include shapes of gratitude and triumph. Dr. Okonjo was already in deep discussion with Venera about establishing a cultural exchange program. Through the station's windows, the asteroid belt shimmered in the starlight, reminding Sarah of the day she found Aurora hiding in the cargo bay. She hadn't known then that by helping one child, she would help spark a transformation that would ripple across the stars. Sometimes, she realized, the most powerful changes begin with the simplest acts of kindness. News of Aurora's performance spread across the galaxy like a wave of light. Human social networks buzzed with recordings of the event, while Vextheri youth began sharing their own hidden talents through encrypted channels. Sanctuary Station transformed from a secret haven into a beacon of cultural revolution. Sarah watched from her new office as another transport arrived, carrying 3 more Vextheri children with various genetic expressions. One created crystalline patterns in their skin, another could shift their bioluminescence into holographic shapes, and the third possessed a voice that could harmonize with their own light displays. They're calling it the Aurora Movement, Dr. Okonjo said, joining her at the window. Parents who once hid their children's differences are now seeking us out. The Vextheri Council can't ignore it anymore. Aurora, now more confident than ever, had taken to greeting each new arrival with a personalized light performance. They worked with Dr. Okonjo to develop ways of combining different genetic expressions into collaborative art pieces. The sanctuary's halls filled with new forms of light and sound as the children learned to embrace their unique abilities. Look at this, Elena's hologram appeared, displaying messages from across Vextheri space. Young artists were incorporating bioluminescent patterns into traditional ceremonies, Musicians were composing pieces specifically for light performers. Even some older Vextheri were coming forward, revealing abilities they had suppressed for decades. Sarah's tablet chimed with a notification from the Human Diplomatic Corps. The Vextheri High Council has officially requested the establishment of a cultural evolution center, she read aloud. They want to build it here, at Sanctuary Station. They're not just accepting change, Dr. Okonjo smiled. They're embracing it. But more importantly, they're acknowledging humanity's role in this transformation. Aurora burst into the office, their lights creating excited patterns. They had been working with the new arrivals on a collaborative performance, combining their different abilities into something entirely new. Their light language had evolved too, incorporating elements from various Vextheri regional dialects and human artistic expressions. Show them what you've discovered, Dr. Okonjo encouraged. Aurora created a complex pattern that shifted and grew, inviting the other children to add their own elements. The crystalline pattern child added geometric structures of light, while the holographic child created depth and dimension. The one with the harmonic voice began to sing, their tones making the light patterns pulse and dance. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. "But it's more than that, isn't it?" Dr. Okonjo nodded. They're developing a new form of communication. These aren't just artistic expressions. They're creating a bridge between different forms of perception and understanding. Elena's hologram flickered with excitement. The implications are staggering. This could revolutionize how species interact with each other. The human ability to recognize and nurture unique talents, combined with Vextheri precision and artistry. She was interrupted by another incoming transmission. The children's performance had been shared across multiple star systems. Other species were reaching out, asking about genetic variations among their own people. The Sanctuary's mission was expanding beyond anything they had imagined. Sarah felt Aurora's hand slip into hers. The child created their special pattern for family. But now it incorporated symbols suggesting growth and connection across the stars. The other children joined in, each adding their own interpretation of the pattern, creating a stunning display of unity and diversity. "When I found you in that cargo bay," Sarah said softly to Aurora, "I never imagined we helped start a galactic renaissance." Aurora's response was to create a new pattern, one that showed a single light spreading outward, igniting other lights until the entire room glowed with possibility. It was a perfect metaphor for what was happening across space, one act of kindness sparking a chain reaction of acceptance and celebration. As the children continued their impromptu performance, Sarah realized they weren't just changing Vextheri culture. They were showing the galaxy that sometimes the most profound revelations come not from careful planning or rigid tradition, but from having the courage to shine as nature intended. 5 years after Sarah first discovered a frightened child in a cargo bay, she stood in the grand amphitheater of the Galactic Arts Academy. The once secret Sanctuary Station had evolved into the Interstellar Center for Cultural Evolution, its asteroid belt location now a symbol of transformation rather than hiding. Aurora, no longer the small, scared child but now a confident young artist, prepared for their graduation performance. The amphitheater buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from 12 species had gathered to witness the event, their own genetic variants among the graduating class. "Ready?" Sarah asked, adjusting Aurora's ceremonial robe, which had been specially designed to enhance rather than hide their bioluminescence. Aurora's response was a complex light pattern that spoke of joy, gratitude, and readiness. They had grown so much, their ability to communicate through light and music now studied across the galaxy. The pattern shifted to include the familiar symbol for family, making Sarah's eyes mist with pride. Dr. Okonjo approached, accompanied by Venra, who had become the first Vextheri Minister of Cultural Evolution. "The Harmonic Council is ready," he said. "They're calling this the performance of the 12 stars." The lights dimmed, and Aurora took center stage. Around them, 11 other graduates moved into position, each representing a different species, each with their own unique genetic expressions. There was a crystalline-skinned Vextheri, a Centaurian with electromagnetic sensitivity, an Andromean with chromatic resonance abilities, and others whose differences had once made them outcasts. The performance began with Aurora's signature blue-green lights dancing through the air. One by one, the other performers added their elements: crystalline reflections, electromagnetic pulses, chromatic waves, and more. The music, composed specially for the event, wove together traditional elements from all 12 species. In the audience, Sarah noticed young children watching in wonder, their own genetic variations glowing, humming, or resonating in response to the performance. Parents who once would have hidden such traits now encouraged their children to express them freely. The piece reached its climax as all 12 performers synchronized their abilities. Aurora's lights merged with the others' expressions, creating a living symphony of diversity. The effect was breathtaking, a demonstration of how different forms of beauty could combine to create something greater than the sum of its parts. As the performance ended, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Sarah caught sight of Elena in the crowd, now the human ambassador to the Interstellar Council for Genetic Diversity. Beside her stood other humans who had helped along the way: ship captains, doctors, engineers, and artists who had all played their part in this revolution. Later, at the graduation ceremony, Aurora received more than just a diploma. The Vextheri High Council presented them with the title of Master Harmonist, the first of its kind. The award recognized not just artistic achievement, but the role Aurora had played in transforming their society's understanding of evolution and progress. "You know," Dr. Okonjo said to Sarah as they watched Aurora celebrate with their fellow graduates, "when humans first joined the galactic community, many species wondered what we could contribute. We weren't the most technologically advanced or the most physically impressive. But we knew how to see beauty in unexpected places," Sarah finished, smiling as Aurora created a joyous pattern that rippled across the amphitheater's ceiling. "More than that," Venra added, joining their conversation, "you knew how to nurture it, protect it, and help it grow. My people had perfection, but you showed us something better: the endless possibility of evolution." Aurora returned to them, their lights creating a pattern that had become famous across the galaxy, the symbol of the Cultural Evolution Center. It showed a single light dividing and changing, each new point growing brighter and more complex, yet remaining connected to its source. As Sarah hugged her now-grown charge, she remembered that first moment in the cargo bay. One small act of kindness had sparked a movement that transformed not just a single child's life, but the very way species across the galaxy understood themselves and each other. Above them, through the amphitheater's crystal dome, the stars shone brightly. Somewhere out there, another child was being discovered, another difference was being celebrated, another future was beginning. The light of change, once lit, would never fade again.